Hello and welcome back to this series of wildlife garden videos about what we've done in our wildlife garden here. This is going to be one of my favourite ones because it's about being messy. Basically, one of the easiest things you can do is not to be too tidy in the garden. So not to mow the lawn, or at least to leave areas of the lawn that aren't mown, to try and avoid mowing the lawn or cutting hedges and things during those periods of the year, so from around about this time right the way through May, June and so on, where wildlife is really active, where the birds are nesting and the insects are thriving and so on, so all the things that the birds might feed on, and all those important pollinators. So leaving lots of things that you might call weeds. So we've got early March here, and we've got dandelions, which are a lovely early source of food for bees and other insects. So some of those bees are appearing. But actually also just noticed some flowers coming on the green alkanet here. This green alkanet tends to proliferate, I think would be the word. We have quite a lot of it in our garden, and it does go everywhere if left unchecked. But I noticed that all sorts of different species of bee were feeding on it, and so it seemed really important to leave plenty of it. It has a really long kind of flowering season, so it's kind of taking them right the way through as a potential sort of source of food. So we left it, and we've come to grow to love it. That it's every bit as lovely as a woodland with bluebells. You get this kind of sea of blue. So yes, not being too kind of fastidious in tidying up the things that you think of as weeds, because you get lots of surprise guests and visitors. Then, so these sort of obviously sort of old kind of dead bits from last year's growth, and in the autumn those were providing sort of places for spiders to build their nests and their webs and so on. So again, just leaving some of that behind, not clearing it all up, and anything that does get cleared, maybe using for the compost heap, so it's being kind of recycled, because it's really important in nature. If you grow plants and then clear them, then all the good stuff, all the nutrients and everything in the soil doesn't get recycled, because normally things would die and then decay and be sort of eaten by earthworms and so on, and it all gets kind of recycled back into the soil. Whereas if you're kind of constantly cutting things back, digging things over and so on and so forth, you're taking all that away, so your soil is kind of degrading, which is a huge problem within agriculture, but it can also be a problem in our gardens as well. So I'm kind of careful to make sure that lots of those kind of natural processes are just left to happen in lots of places, not all the time, but as much as possible. And the other thing, if you're able, we do have quite a large garden, especially for London, but if you have the space for it, is to leave a patch to go wild. So this kind of very scrubby area, and it's undisturbed, which is really important. So it's a safe haven for wildlife, and it provides, so the fence is a bit rickety down there. There's actually a gap down there, so we've got a couple of places where hedgehogs and other animals could come through. And it provides a kind of safe corridor, so the hedgehog's got a safe corridor all the way down through here, where they can travel with some cover and so on, and actually get to the food and the water. So it's, and some trees have made their home here of their own accord. So we've got this alder here that's set up, and there's a sycamore further down, and doing very much what would happen as kind of woodland got established. Those kind of pioneer trees with the alder eventually you probably end up with a lot more trees in the garden, and this is all just part of the process. Obviously, it might not be appropriate to completely let that happen, that the garden turns into a woodland, but possibly that might be quite nice. And the other thing I've mentioned before is about noticing really what nature's doing, what's visiting, and then seeing what we can do to kind of help and support that and encourage things. So sort of noticing what's going on, not just in the garden but in the local area. So we've noticed that well, one of the things that I've noticed since my childhood is the huge decline in the number of sparrows that I see personally, and so I've noticed that the sparrows love these pyracanthus. So I've got put in a couple of pyracanthus that they obviously enjoy the berries and things that people that grow on the plants, and I've seen in other people's gardens, well, heard in other people's gardens, just the noise of the sparrows. So it seemed fitting to sort of encourage some of that here. So that's a new addition this year. So just bring some berries for the birds. So they love the holly. We've had black caps, redwings, and blackbirds on the holly. But then it's nice to supplement that with a nice range of different diverse species, so that if the weather one year is not particularly good and is not particularly conducive to one particular species, that you've got a range of things that maybe would cope better. And you've also got that there's maybe food sources around the year, that it's not all condensed into one particular flowering season, or berry season, or whatever. That there's the different plants are doing things at different times and different places in the garden. So and we're just more of that green alkanet, just allowing some of it to grow, but this grass will be allowed to grow longer, and then we do get the sort of crickets and grasshoppers, and just a whole variety of insects. It's obviously we've got a swing here, so it is used as well for sort of playing in and doing other garden things. So you're not necessarily having to give the whole lot over to wildlife, but it's lovely to be able to share it, and to really enjoy the fruits of your lack of labours, that by not mowing and by not tidying up too much, seeing what visitors you get, and it's a fantastic way to enjoy your garden. It's certainly brought joy to my life.